Hey guys, welcome to Mrs. Crop's classroom. Today we are going to talk about conflict. The main thing to understand when you're looking at conflict is that all stories have conflict, and conflict is the main driving force in a plot. Without the conflict or the challenge that the protagonist has to overcome, you have nothing, okay? So while none of your analysis questions may ask you about the challenge, understand that the challenge or the conflict is the most important thing to understand about what's going on in a story, because this is how you're going to be able to understand everything. If you don't understand what your conflicts are, then you don't know what kind of characters you have. You don't know how they're reacting to obstacles, and you're not going to be able to determine whether or not they're successful. Okay? Now, there's different ways you can look at conflict. And I keep saying conflict versus challenge because in the Common Core world of school, challenge is the new buzzword that's going to start to replace the word conflict. I personally prefer the word conflict as an English major in college and all that kind of stuff. But in high school, the term challenges is used a lot as well. So I'm going to try to use them interconnectedly. So when you're looking at conflict or challenges, you're looking at the obstacle or the person that is against our main protagonist, our main character or protagonist. So what is it that they have to deal with, okay? Is it a man versus man kind of conflict? Now, a man versus man conflict is going to mean that our antagonist is a person. Okay, and so this is like our good person, bad person kind of dynamic, where you have one person and the other person, and they're going to fight, and then the winner is the victor. Okay, now if you have a man versus self kind of conflict in a story, then this is where you have one character, and that person or protagonist has to deal with themselves and their own issues inside their head. So one of the antagonists in this story is going to be themselves and their own issues. Okay, so if you have one person in a story where they are forced to deal with the grief of the loss of a loved one, then that's their major conflict, is dealing with their own internal emotions and turmoils. Another option that you have for conflict is going to be man versus technology. So this is any story where you've got killer robots. Okay, you can also have computer programs that try to defeat you, or you've got AI systems out there that are trying to control the world. This is all man versus technology. After that, the next most common conflict is going to be a man versus nature. So in man versus nature is where you have your survivalist videos. You've got a main character or protagonist who has to survive a hurricane or a storm or the ocean. So these are going to be the types of conflicts or challenges that protagonist has to overcome. And it's not just going to be one major conflict or challenge. There's going to be a series of things, and there might be multiple types. Like one character might have to deal with a man versus self issue while also having to overcome a man versus nature when he's stranded at sea. So you can have more than one conflict in a story, but there's always going to be one major conflict that kind of creates the story. So now that I've covered a couple of types of conflicts that certain protagonists will have to overcome in lots of stories, I'm going to show a couple of examples here, and I want you to see if you can figure them out. So one example is going to be Batman versus Superman. So in Batman versus Superman, we actually have a man versus man situation because we've got these two superheroes who are pitted against each other. But we also have a man versus self, where Batman is struggling with his own understanding of what a superhero is and who to trust and who not to trust. We have Jurassic World. This is going to be a man versus nature kind of conflict, because we have the main people trying to overcome the challenge of dealing with the escaped dinosaurs, and dinosaurs are going to be considered a type of nature. Then we have this film, I, Robot. So I, Robot is going to be an example of man versus technology. So in this movie, it is the robots or the AI that controls the robots that has become evil and is trying to control the human race. The next video we're going to talk about is Transformers. So in Transformers, we actually have a machine against machine, but then we also have the human on the side of the good machines who are working against the other technology, which is the other machines. So we're going to have a man versus technology video here. Finally, we've got The Secret Life of Pets. Secret Life of Pets is going to be a man versus self type of conflict, which is interesting because it is a kids movie. So obviously they're pets and they're animals, but they are anthropomorphized, or animals turned into human qualities, and therefore we're going to consider them the equivalent of a man. And the conflicts that they are having to deal with is actually self, where they're having to learn how to overcome their own fears, and Max, for example, is having to learn how to accept Duke, but it's not Max versus Duke, it's really Max versus himself, where he's got to learn to accept Duke in his family. It's a great children's movie for learning how to deal with inner emotions. And Snowball himself also has to deal with his own internal conflict of having to get over the pain of being abandoned and to let someone else love him as well. So these are some different types of conflicts that we see all the time in our films. I hope that this video helped you guys understand a little bit more about the different conflicts or challenges that we see in literature, also in TV and in movies. If you have any comments, questions, or anything, please leave your comments below. Check out our other websites and links. We've got a lot of cool stuff out there. And if you haven't already done this, please, please, please subscribe to our channel.